Dear viewers and listeners, welcome to another episode of Side by Side with myself, Kazi Shafiqur Rahman.
How are you going to create this brand experience that conjures up these emotions? Because emotion is such a powerful tool. People talk about being consistent, showing up consistently. But even more powerful than that is what is the emotions that you can own, that when someone feels that emotion, immediately they link it to you.
You'll get to learn all about branding today from our unique and special guest, Maylene. What was the social norm, and did you kind of break any barriers?
Yeah, I never liked, being like everyone else. I've never really dived that deep into that part of my life, even when I've done like therapy sessions. With the hotel experience, you want someone to feel pampered and feel like they're looked after. Maybe I felt that I never had that experience, and so you know what? It might even be a way of like an escape.
Now, before we begin, I have a small favor to ask. If you would kindly just hit that subscribe button, as this will help us massively. Let's begin. Before we kind of get into the kind of the actual educational element, let us go back and learn more about you as a person. Who are you? Who's Maylene? And how did she kind of get to where she is today? Maybe take us back as far as possible.
Wow. Okay, thanks for having me here. Who am I? Right. So, well, I'm a mum of two. But before this, I was an aspiring designer. So I'm going back as far as when I first started my career. I've always actually wanted to be in the creative industry, and my mum actually was the one who encouraged me to get into it. Actually, no, before that, I wanted to own a hotel. But then she's like, no, the hotel, being in that industry is really hard. Do what you're good at, which is, something creative. So I went into design school. And then I got myself into an award-winning design studio in Singapore. Once I graduated, always loved packaging design, so that was the area that I went into. And then I had bigger dreams to travel the world. So one of my big dreams was always to be able to work around the world, and I wanted to work in London. I wanted to work in San Francisco, and then that took me here to London, and for about, it's been so long. I think this was like 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
20 years ago. And I've been in London for almost that time, I think. And just been working in some branding agencies, like, global agencies who also work with big brands that you probably would have heard of. You probably have some of the items in your home. So worked with P&G, Unilever, Mars, and it's like just been to different agencies. And alhamdulillah, when I was with the very first agency who accepted me in when I came here, it's not been an easy journey. I got the chance, I moved on from junior designer to design director quite quickly. And then I had the opportunity to travel the world to art direct photo shoots and to meet with clients and manufacturers, etc., work on the brands. And so that was an amazing time for me. Just getting to see all the different markets as well, see the whole process of how a product's been created, how it's been branded and marketed, all the things that need to go into growing such a big brand. And so that's been a really great experience. Then after that, obviously got married and had kids.
What year was that?
Oh gosh, got married in 2011, and I had my daughter in 2013.
Okay.
So this was when I took a long maternity leave, and I needed a creative
And that's
outlet.
all in London.
That's all in London.
Yeah. Now, if we were to go way back, like your primary school days.
Oh, God, even way back.
Yes, like we want to
Okay.
know, who Maylene is, and, how did she kind of become who she is, and what makes Maylene who she is? I guess I'm trying to understand your branding, your personal. I mean, as a
Right,
person,
okay.
how do you work, and who, just
Oh, okay. Back in Singapore. Oh, I'm going back, way back, right?
way back.
in
Take us as
Singapore.
far as possible.
Okay. I actually shared this story before, but and I didn't realize this. I think it's got something to do with my mum. So when I was maybe like 6, 7 years old, I think, maybe even earlier, my mom, she started working, but one of her passions was flowers. So she was working as a florist.
Nice.
And I think my mom is that kind of person where, for her, anything she does it with excellence. I think I picked that up from her. And so, she had this love for flowers. She wanted to teach other people how to do flowers. And she loves going for competitions, because for her, the award it means she's made it. you know? So she always used to go to this competitions, and I remember some of my earliest memories was, being at workshops with her, like in our void deck in Singapore, where she was teaching in this community center. And so I'll be giving out things to all the students, like all the materials. But also another memory I had was when she was doing the competitions, I'll be crawling under everyone's tables and picking up all the flower cuttings and creating my own masterpiece. Because I was bored, right? I was bored, but okay, everyone's making flowers, I'll do that too. So I made a little masterpiece next to hers. And I remember she got the champion trophy that year, but the organizers also recognized my effort. And I remember going up and getting.
And this is all in Singapore.
This was in Singapore.
Singapore.
Yeah. So it was I keep remembering it was some held by some Dutch organizers for some reason. So I don't know what that award was. But yeah, they gave me a towel as a present and a kiss on the cheek. That was like one memory that I still kind of like have quite strong, still remember really strongly. But I reckon it's that kind of kick-started me into going for my dreams, wanting to help others get where they want to go.
How did you know, like, you really had a dream? Like, okay, you had, joined the competition or something, but how did you know, like, there's more to me? Like, how did you kind of come out of the, I don't know what's life like in Singapore, but what was the social norm? And, did you kind of break any barriers?
Yeah. I think for me, I never liked, being like everyone else. Everyone in Singapore, you have this mindset of, at that time anyway, not so much now. Like, okay, you go to primary school, you go to secondary school, you go to college, you go to university, you come out, you go and be a doctor, whatever, lawyer. I was never like that. I was never like that. And I just remember, just in terms of things that I like, etc., I hate it when other people had the same thing as me. Like, I just don't like to be like everybody else. So for me, when I told my mom that, I love to have my own hotel, I don't know how I got the idea, maybe just never got to travel.
Yeah, interesting. Like, why hotel? Why out of all the things? Like, for me, it's okay, I can explain about my aviation dreams and why, but hotel, like, what triggered it? Yeah, what triggered hotel?
I think maybe because my family was never that well-to-do. We never that well-to-do. I definitely remember times where, we had power cuts or telephone cuts, whatever.
Even in Singapore, I thought Singapore is a very...
Well, yeah, because, like my dad didn't pay the bills.
Oh, right. Okay.
So
in that sense, not because of power shortage or load shedding or something.
No, it's not that. No, it's because, the bills were not paid. And I remember my mum was not working at one point as well, but she had to go to work because, my dad wasn't keeping up with the bills. And I think she felt like she had to get out there. So there might be a bit of that. And I just remember, because we were not that well-to-do, never got to go on holidays. I love traveling. I love exploring. I love the whole kind of going to get a whole different experience. I think maybe for me it's like owning a hotel. Maybe it might have been because like, you know, the first hotel I went to, I had such a good time. And
Do you remember what it was?
you know what? Not really. I remember a few hotels. And they weren't really that great, to be honest.
Yeah.
But it was just the idea of you getting out there, you know,
Yeah.
you're really enjoying yourself. I think the first few holidays we had was probably to Malaysia. So there was one we did as a family. And where was it? I know we went to like Genting Highlands in Malaysia. And I remember there was also one little trip I did just with my mom, like a girly time. But yeah, I just remember that excitement, you know, when you're getting on the coach or the plane. Actually, no, at that time, we weren't even flying. No, it was on the coach. And it was just that the excitement of like what's to come. You're going to go and enjoy yourself. You get all the time with your family. And then you've been given this experience where you get like, you know, breakfast buffets and things like that.
Could it be that maybe you wanted to care for people, like you wanted to maybe give a unique experience to your guests by owning a hotel?
There must be some of that there, yeah. It, you know, even today, I mean, how I can see it drawing to the whole hotel experience is like, I always talk about how branding is that whole brand experience, you know, how someone feels. It's all about emotions because that is really powerful in branding. I think that's probably drawing back to the whole thing with the hotel experience. You want someone to feel pampered and feel like they're looked after. Maybe I felt like I never had that experience, and so to be able to give that experience
goes
to somebody
back to being different and, you know,
and
being unique.
different. You know, you're creating something which takes someone out of. You know what? It might even be a way of like an escape.
Yeah.
Because I was in this, you know, my parents were on the verge of divorce. I was probably, I mean, I was quite, to be honest, I'm a very happy-go-lucky person growing up. I'm like, I look so nonchalant about everything, but actually maybe deep down, I'm like hiding something, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe that's the sense of wanting that happiness, that joy, a happy family. And so it's like providing the hotel experience means maybe families can come together and spend time together. I mean, this is me kind of like thinking back now, maybe there's that. I've never really dived that deep into that part of my life, even when I've done like therapy sessions. I don't think I've touched on this part, but you know, you have a point there. So maybe that's that, you know, because I didn't have that, because my parents going through a divorce didn't get those holidays when you spend time with parents, where you get this whole experience where you're, for a moment, you're feeling like you're escaping, like it's an escape, you're feeling a certain emotion. It might just be me wanting to reconjure and recapture that experience for somebody.
You talk a lot about your mum. I mean, obviously now I can understand, like, you know, why. Now, let me just ask you a side question. Obviously, your name is Maylene, but you're wearing hijab now.
Yes.
You know, how does that work? Like, you know, were you born a Muslim, or did you
so I embraced Islam. Yeah, I embraced Islam at 21. So basically, well, first of all, I think this was when I was maybe 19 years old or 18 years old. I was dating a Muslim boy in Singapore. I know it's not halal, but you know, at that time it's like, you know, he wasn't very religious, but I remember, so I was dating this Muslim boy, and his mom one day suggested to me like, oh, why don't you go to the Convert Association to learn about Islam? So I was like, okay. I mean, at that time I had tried fasting just for fun, you know. And
was it after meeting the Muslim boy or before?
So this was during we dated for about 3 years, 3 or 4 years. So during this time, his mom, and we get along quite well. She suggested I go to the Muslim Convert Association in Singapore, and so I did. I went and learned about Islam, and then I think what it was one day I thought, you know what, let's try to pray. And as I put my head down and on the prayer mat, I was like, you know, there's this whole feeling of peace just wash over me.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I cannot not I cannot live another day without Allah, without accepting Allah as my God. Like, I can't live another day without Allah in my life. Like, this is it.
Wow. That is, wow.
So yeah. So then, but I was 20 then. I was like, okay, I know my parents are probably going to freak out, especially my mom. I was like, let's wait till I'm 21, which wasn't that far away. Wait till I'm 21. I'm going to embrace Islam because I'm an adult, so-called, and I can then, do whatever I want in a way. So yeah, I waited till I was 21, and then I embraced Islam. I wasn't dating the Muslim boy anymore by that time. And I've also always said to myself, if I were to embrace Islam, I want to do it because I want to do it, not because of someone else.
Yeah, wow.
So I did it.
It's a huge, I suppose it's a huge decision, even at 21. And
I suppose it is, isn't it?
Yeah, now that I guess you look back, I guess in Singapore maybe. So what was your parents' religion? What were they kind of practicing?
They were Buddhists.
Okay.
They are Buddhists.
Mm-hmm.
And quite, would you say quite religious? Yeah. Like I had this goddess of mercy altar in my house. So my mom prays every day. And yeah, so they were religious. So she freaked out.
So how did you kind of relay the news that I've converted?
So I didn't say anything yet, but after I converted, obviously I was praying, right? And usually I'll lock the door of my bedroom study room. And then one day I just thought, you know what? I think if I'm going to leave the door unlocked. If they find out, they find out. It's time for them to find out then. I'll leave it to... In a way, I was saying, like, I'll leave it to Allah. If it's time for them to find out, they'll walk in, they find out. Yeah. And that very day, she walked in while I was praying. And then she was like, oh my God, what are you doing? And then she was like, oh, did that Muslim boy's family curse you? Like,
wow.
Because she I don't know whether it was that moment or another day before where she had threatened to jump out the window of our 6th floor flat if I converted or something like this.
Wow.
And obviously, alhamdulillah, she didn't. She was obviously really upset. And I was trying to tell her, look, I'm no different. It's just that my belief is different, right? I'm still the same person. If anything, I think this will make me a better person. But she called a friend who's a fortune teller at the temple that she goes to. And then obviously was, just ranting and everything. But alhamdulillah, the funny thing was the next day, I remember going into her bedroom, I was getting my stuff, and she was like, okay, so what's halal for you to eat and what's not halal? I was like, alhamdulillah. I don't know what the guy told her. I don't know what her friend told her, but I reckon he must have said to her, oh, just close one eye. This is for maybe, just 2 years. And,
temporary period.
It's temporary. She will not be a Muslim in 2 years' time. And maybe because he's a fortune teller, she probably believed him and thought, oh, okay, you know what, this is just temporary.
Yeah.
So she was fine with it. So then, I have to say, like, a huge respect to my mom, because I remember that very year we went on a cruise, like on this luxury cruise, just the two of us, and I wore hijab throughout, and she didn't bat an eyelid. Like, she would sit at a table with like 8 other Chinese women and wouldn't even I can imagine it must be hard for her. Like, people must be wondering, like, why is this Chinese girl wearing hijab and like, what's she doing here? And she just, she just took it in her stride. So I have to say, like, yeah, that's why I have respect for my mom, because it must have been hard for her.
Wow. Now, obviously, from what it looks like, she was probably the I guess in your kind of life, the inspiration and the leader that kind of, I suppose, developed you. I'm not going to go too much into your father's side. Now, as a person or in a classroom setting, what were you like? Were you like more of a leader, or were you kind of in between, or were you a follower?
Oh, good question. I wouldn't say I'm a leader. I'm like, I've actually thought about this question before. I think I'm the leader who steps in if no one else wants to be a leader.
Okay.
I think I secretly want to be a leader, but I don't. Either I'm not sure if I don't have the confidence, or I like to let other people, kind of shine and take the lead, and I like to be the one that's like I think I'm happier being like the advisor to the leader or having that kind of an influence or inspiration. But yeah, I don't think I had the guts to be the leader. I'll only step in if I have to. But
Nice.
I don't think I like to be the follower
Either. So I guess you're in between.
I'm the
like,
in-between.
Yeah,
I'm
you kind of like assess the situation, and you kind of.
Yeah.
That's quite a nice, I guess, position to be in, because you're not really kind of always wanting to lead. Because sometimes it's nice to also just follow. Let other people kind of do the effort, and you just follow the lead.
Yeah.
Now I want to talk about your first ever job. Like, I'm sure you went through school, university, and all of that stuff. What was your first job like, and how did you get in?
The first job, is this like my first job was a disaster.
Why?
Is this like during school or like after you
I
after
suppose
graduating?
no. It doesn't even have to be your professional job. It could be any form of job that you kind of took on. And how did it all turn out?
Okay, I'll tell you. My first job was a disaster because it was an admin job. I was super bored and I got fired because I wasn't turning up and wasn't calling in. So I was a bit irresponsible. And
Maybe rebellious.
I don't know what it is, but it was like there was other more exciting things happening in my life then. But you know what? I think that gave me a wake-up call. It was short-lived, and it was my very, very first kind of insight into the working world. But I think that woke me up and made me realize, look, you got to be responsible. And I think that, even though I don't like to talk about that job because obviously I got fired.
Yeah.
That really, I think that was a lesson for me. And then after that, I think I became a lot more kind of conscientious and just knowing what how do I put it? I think I also started looking for jobs where I actually enjoy, and I started looking for jobs where I can add value.
What were those jobs that you were looking on the side that you were kind of enjoying? I guess looking into. What were those jobs?
I think so the next job I got was actually at Starbucks, and that was like one of the. This was in school still, so I wasn't I wasn't out of school yet. This was in Starbucks. Starbucks just came to Singapore.
Okay.
And that was one of my first jobs, but I think it was also a job that gave me a lot of insight into branding and gave me a lot of insight into interactions with people, and it taught me a lot. I never realized until recently when I did a post.
What would be a couple of takeaways that you took away from say Starbucks, working in Starbucks, that you kind of still appreciate till today?
So a couple of them, right? So I remember the first day of training, we had Howard Schultz, the CEO then of Starbucks, come in to train us.
Oh wow! Like you actually met the.
I met the CEO.
Wow.
Then CEO,
amazing.
yeah. So it was amazing. I was like, oh my goodness, in Singapore. But I think one of the things that really made an impression on me was he said to us, look, you're not an employee, you're a partner at Starbucks. And I think that made us feel like we have value to add to the company. So that was a little bit of a shift for me. But also we get 5 free drinks. And it's like, obviously you think like, oh my goodness, I can get all the frappuccinos I want.
Wow.
But at the same time, what it was like, I mean, after a time, you've probably had enough of frappuccinos and coffee.
Yeah.
I was putting on weight because I was drinking so much crap. Not crap, sorry. I was drinking so much like sweet stuff, right? But we were giving it to other people, and that made the customer experience better for other people. And in Starbucks, we address people by their names. We take their names down, put that on the cups. And it's always about them and making that experience wonderful for them, giving them a free drink. Obviously, they will remember you, right? They remember the wonderful experience they had at Starbucks. They keep coming back. But that taught me about the whole customer experience. And then what else was it? Also, just with the training, obviously, it taught you like how you should be communicating with people, your customers, your colleagues. And like what makes up the whole Starbucks experience, what the values of the company are. And that made sure that there's consistency, not in just one Starbucks, all the Starbucks. So we could be working in this branch or the other branch. You know exactly what is expected of you.
Amazing.
And so that whole consistency from branch to branch. So I think for me that already gave me the insight, and I didn't realize until recently as well. Like, oh, actually, this really taught me lots about branding and the importance of what it is to be consistent and to share the values and build that culture within the company itself.
Wow. Now, take me back, fast forward me to your most recent proper, I guess, C-level, C-suite job, and how did you what did that journey look like from Starbucks until your recent job and then ultimately to your own business?
Okay, so then obviously I graduated, and my first job was at that branding studio in Singapore. And I just remember, because I said I really love packaging, right? I remember we used to be looking at all these books with like all these wonderful works from top award-winning agencies like Turner Duckworth and Design Bridge, and then they were in San Francisco or in London. So for me, there was like that dream to want to work in these agencies, to be like that, world-class designer, and just to be in that kind of creative environment. But also, like I said, I love traveling. So I wanted to travel around the world. And one of the dreams I had actually was to be able to travel around the world to visit all the different masjids around the world. So there was that desire. So I think when the opportunity came where I could actually leave the country, I wanted to get out. So I met my now husband,
Dr. Chan.
Yes. And so I was like, okay, maybe this is the chance for me to explore, new horizons. So he's in London, Turner Duckworth and Design Bridge in London. All right. So I booked a one-way flight to London, had to slowly get my parents to accept that I'm going to be going. So I started. Not
only did you revert or convert, now you're going as well.
Yeah. I mean, my mom met Dr. Chen and I don't know what it is, but she really trusted him. Okay. So I was like, okay. So then, I left first of all for 2 months. It became 2 years, and then it became like 15 years. But basically what happened was then I came to London. I didn't have a job. I actually got myself a job at AIG. Doing admin work, nothing to do with
insurance.
Yes, I was just filing papers because while I was going for interview after interview, it was really hard for me to get into the design industry.
Why were they not taking you? I mean, why? What was the reason? Did anyone of them ever give you feedback, or did you even ask for feedback?
I don't think they ever really tell you the truth.
Okay.
Like they'll be like, yeah,
what do you think it could have been?
I don't know. Let me see. What could it be? I think because when I left, I was a junior designer. I don't know whether it had anything to do with my qualifications or maybe because I was coming from Singapore. I was overseas. These are all global brands. Yeah. Maybe they wanted somebody who would already be able to get stuck in and do the work and create something that would allow, how to put it? Where, someone who understands the market, understands how to adapt to it and everything. Hit the ground running pretty much. But alhamdulillah, after a year, I did get an interview at this global agency, and the design director who interviewed me, and he's amazing. He's such a clever man and so creative.
What agency is it?
This is PI Global.
Okay, PI Global.
PI Global. This is Notting Hill, so love that area. Yeah. But basically, he interviewed me, and then they were actually looking for interns or someone to just do a very temporary kind of placement. But he actually offered me the job instead. He's like, I think you have a lot of potential. So alhamdulillah, I think that was almost like my how to put it?
The
break into the industry. And from there it just it just kept growing. So I spent 7 years at PI Global, and they were amazing. I think they really groomed me to help me become where I am today.
What sort of things did the director, I guess, personally kind of teach you or contribute towards your development in that first job in London?
I think it was more like, I mean, because, we would be like doing concepts, showing concepts, and he would be directing like, oh, do it this, like you can do it this way. What about you think of it this way? But for me, what I learned most was actually through watching him, watching how he turned ideas into, how he turned vision into life, how he did it with so much flair and just wit. And that was very inspiring for me to watch. So for me, it was more like, it wasn't as important what he was telling me to do. It was more like watching how he did it.
Wow.
And so like I remembered for a very long time, every time I was doing the design, I was like, what would David do? How would he do it? And I would try and emulate that. So a lot of it was through that. And then obviously as I got to a more senior level, I was going on trips to like China, to Denmark, etc., India, and meeting a client. And then I was working alongside brand strategists and seeing how they were approaching problems, how they were thinking of the brand. And I think it was all that immersion, that experience. And, I stayed with like a brand strategist who was, I stayed with a brand strategist in Mumbai. So she was based in Mumbai because I helped to open up an agency, the office there. But I stayed with her. So it's like really like learning from people that I was meeting. And I was hanging out with the Unilever client, that we were just going out and almost like friends. So
Wow.
So it was like learning a lot of things.
Was your education kind of linked to what you were doing in reality in terms of work?
It's linked. So when I was in school, I studied visual communication. But that was a diploma. And because again, I didn't have, my parents didn't have the money to send me to design school to get a degree overseas, etc. So it was a diploma. But I've always believed that the best education you get is from learning on the job.
Yeah.
And absolutely. I think that's what I did. I think that's what I got as well, was learning on the job.
Hey guys, I hope you are enjoying the show. If you have been enjoying the show today, please don't forget to hit subscribe, like, and comment. Now let's get back into the show. What was your last job like, before you kind of decided, okay, that's me, like kind of enough for me in terms of working for, I guess, a particular establishment. Now it's time to, do my own.
I don't think it ever was like, oh, that's it. It's kind of like, how do I put it?
Circumstances
it's because of circumstances. Yeah, precisely. Because I had my kids and it was like, what could I do? How can I balance it? The last place I worked at was this agency called Wonderworks, which is like experiential marketing. That was like something that was a bit out of my comfort zone initially, but I
what
learned
does
a lot.
experiential marketing mean?
So basically, they work with brands. Like we still do design and stuff, but they create events and activations where, for example, I mean, this was actually a lot with, like, for example, they worked with this brand called Courvoisier. I don't even know if I say it correctly, but, like they work with drinks brands. And then it was like they were creating this event and like, how do you bring in the brand? How do you create that brand experience? So a lot about experience again. So like they were creating this event, like bringing in the flowers, because there was a lot about creating this. I can't even remember what it was now because I came in the middle of the project, but I remember creating flowers, bringing all the design elements, and all the kind of keywords or values that was linked to the brand. How do you translate that into this event where people walk in and they get the whole Courvoisier experience? And I think, to your point, it actually feels a little bit like the whole hotel experience thing.
So I guess everything is kind of intertwined with
each other. So
Now tell me, like, obviously a lot of people, like, they want to get in business. That it's quite fashionable these days to be in business, but obviously it's not as rosy as it looks on the other side.
Yeah.
Now, what does branding mean anyway? Like, everyone thinks, let's make a brand, let's make a logo, and we're good to go.
Yeah.
What does it all mean? Like, from your perspective, what is branding?
I think Jeff Bezos said it the best. So I'm going to just repeat it. But basically, branding is what people think and feel about you. It's what they say about you when you're not in the room, right? So it's that image, that perception of your business as a brand. And for me, what branding does is it has the power to create this experience, which leads to what they are going to think and feel and say about your brand. And, because it's people, 95% of our purchase decisions are made subconsciously. So what it is people are buying based on how they feel about your brand, what they perceive of your brand. So you're trying to own a certain emotion with your brand. So when people see it, they like your current customers or clients, they feel a sense of belonging, and they feel a sense of belonging with the brand, and they want to rave about it to everybody else.
So break it down for me, I don't know, let's talk about a brand your favorite brand, and maybe give us kind of a breakdown of how they set it up, or how they achieve what they achieve in terms of from a branding point of view.
Okay, so maybe let's go with a brand maybe everyone knows, like Innocent juices, drinks, right? So, it's fun. It's obviously goes to the name Innocent. It's a little bit quirky, and it's just very pure and joyful. And, it's everything from the logo to the language they use. Like they call the office the Banana Towers, right? And then when we talk about the whole experience, like the packaging, I mean, the packaging is simple, but then, when it comes to, let's say, what was it? They had this thing called the Big Knit or something. Like, this is where I talk about activation, experiential campaigns and things. They have all these knitted hats for their bottles, and it's all adding to a cause. And even like, say, when they have their, what do you call that? When they have these festivals, you see this big cow and you see this van with grass all over it. And it's just the whole visual language, the everything seen and unseen, the kind of graphics they use, the tongue-in-cheek way they talk to their customers, all of that leads to this whole brand perception of who they are.
So now my question to you is, let's talk about Apple. I think everyone knows Apple quite well. How much of a logo, I mean, in terms of percentage, imagine a brand is 100%. How much percentage is a logo of the branding? Like, how much impact does it have from an identity point of view? And what's the rest of it?
You know what? I'm thinking 10%. Maybe some people might disagree with me.
So 10%
is the logo.
Is the visual appearance or the logo?
Yeah, the logo. But actually, so it's just the logo itself, because what it is, the logo, I always see it as something that's going to remind you of everything else that you build around the logo. So obviously the logo has got to look good, right? It's got to be simple and iconic to set you apart from others. But a lot of people get so transfixed about the logo and trying to cram all the messaging into a logo. What it is you have to build the other 90%, or maybe it's 80 or 70%. And what the logo does is remind you of these other things, the whole experience of your perception of the brand. It's that is actually more important. Your messaging, the whole visual identity. Is it distinctive enough? Does it compel your customers, your dream customers or clients, to want to work with you, to trust you? All that is, all that's more important, and the logo just reminds you of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's like going to a hotel and you see the logo on the tower of the hotel, then you kind of remind yourself everything that logo does, or everything, say Hilton, for example, you kind of straight away kind of capture like, okay, this is what Hilton stands for: high quality, standards, consistency, quality of service. So yes, I get that. Now, to achieve that, is there like a framework that these mega brands use, or is it just random? Like they just create something like, I want to project this emotion and, let's go and let's make some TV ads, or is there a certain formula to kind of follow?
Well, I mean, you would find that different people probably have like different formulas, but what I like to say is, first of all, it's just clarity of why you're even in business. and what are you trying to say? What are you trying to say? How are you different? I think that's the first thing to establish is how are you different to everyone else? What's the problem you're solving for people, and how are their lives going to be transformed, by buying from you, working with you? And then it's capturing that. And also what's important is knowing who you're trying to help and really understanding what do they want. And sometimes they might not know what they want as well, but you know what the problem is, what their goals are, their dreams, their fears, their needs are, and you're providing a solution to give them that. And
how do you come to who? Because that's a very, I guess, can be quite a tedious task, isn't it?
To who, like who?
Yeah. How
do
you know like who you are serving? Like, how do I know who I'm serving?
But I think that's why it's important to know your why first of all, isn't it?
Yeah.
And also, what I like to say is usually you're in business because you're trying to solve a problem for yourself. So actually, and this is not from me, but your best position to serve an earlier version of yourself. Your best position is to help somebody who is in the shoes you were in, because now you've overcome that.
Yeah.
And usually I see that is your ideal customers, because you're so familiar with what you've gone through. You know exactly how to solve the problem, and you can help them with the same problem faster, better probably. And that's what I do, look into okay, so what do they want and how can I help them? And they might have there might be some kind of differences in their personalities maybe, or they might be a little bit different to who you are or who you were, but there is going to be always that similar goal, that similar dream or desire or frustrations. And so it's really having a good understanding of what that is, so that you can talk to them in the way that they are most receptive, if that makes sense.
So we found why, who, and what else?
What? So what is it that you're offering? So knowing what your offering is, right? So it's knowing how does your product or service help them? How is it different to what other people are offering? Like, what is going to what's going to make them choose you over somebody else? And sometimes, it might be very similar offerings to other people, but it's how you talk about it. It's the messaging, it's the messaging, the way you say it that they can relate to, that might make them to choose you over somebody else. Because I have clients who I'm like, okay, I'm not available, but these people can help you. And they will be like, no, I think I feel like our values align more.
Yeah.
So then they will actually rather wait for me to work with me than to go to somebody else.
Is that something that comes naturally from you as a person, or is that something that you kind of sat down and thought about it a lot, and you kind of on purpose communicate a certain signals to, say, the world?
I think some of it is innate.
Okay.
And like I said, that's why I'm thinking my own lived experience, like with Starbucks, having gone to design school, everything, I think it's all come out through that. Like even when I was having Puppetry, the Islamic Kids lifestyle brand to inspire faith in little ones, I was building a brand, but I didn't consciously do it. It was just from what I had learned and from my experience as, a brand designer. I had created a brand that people love, that I could sell. So I think it's because of what I've done in my past and my childhood probably as well, that has helped me to create something. But that said, it can be learned. You can find out what that framework is. Like, back to your question, it's the why, the who, the what, and then I think it's the how, isn't it? How are you going to create this brand experience that conjures up these emotions? Because emotion is such a powerful tool. People talk about being consistent, showing up consistently. But even more powerful than that is, what is the emotions that you can own, that when someone feels that emotion, immediately they link it to you. So for example, like with Zumba, their founder, is it Jeffrey Pullman? With Zumba, it's about owning this feeling that he calls freeing electric joy. So when someone's like in the moment dancing to Zumba, that's what they feel, and that is what they are, what can be associated with them. And that's when you become an unstoppable brand.
So people like Apple, Are they
Yes.
doing this on purpose, or are they just successful because they just created amazing products? Or Starbucks, for example.
You know what? That no, it would. I mean, like there is intention behind the brand, right? They have the teams and the marketing people and the branding people and the business people behind it. They would obviously have like that framework that they're working to. But like Steve Jobs is such a creative genius as well.
Yeah.
So there are things that he's probably doing from his own experience, and that is pretty genius, right? So like I think what is so successful about Apple is that they are all about think different, and I think what it is about them is they took a frustration and turned it into a solution. Like with, I think at that time it was like Microsoft, wasn't it? And you always get this viruses, and I don't know how your experience with like Windows and all that and Microsoft is.
Well, since I've discovered Apple, I don't think I would ever go back to any non-Apple devices or computers.
And then as a creative myself, when you give me all this tech, I'm like, oh god, this just goes over my head, right? But like sometimes you feel stupid because like, why can't I do this? And what Apple does is it gives you something where you can be creative and create and be a genius, and that that is giving you a solution in a way, but it also opens up so many possibilities for someone like me. And they're like, I think that's why I don't even remember those ads where they had like a PC person and a Mac person.
Yeah.
And it's just it becomes, with Apple, it becomes an experience again. Right?
What is the emotion that they are trying to portray?
Oh God.
What do you think it is? Or say you could choose Starbucks because you've worked in Starbucks. What was the emotion that they're trying to portray?
So Starbucks was joy. It was community. They call it the third space. That is
third space. So
because you have your home, you got your work or school, and this is a place like meet me at Starbucks. That's why they ran a whole campaign like meet me at Starbucks, because that's the third space to hang out at.
Yeah.
And this is where you get the connection and the joy, and because it's not just about the coffee. This is a space where people can actually hang out, right?
Yeah.
So yes, it's that. Like you have. Oh well, I was like a diehard Starbucks fan. I mean, not so much nowadays since I came to Europe, because I'm more for like European coffees and things. But it's I would still go to Starbucks for the experience. If that makes sense.
Let's say like now I want to create a brand now. Say Kazi is the brand. What are the steps that I'm taking forward until like you consider me to be a now brand? What are the things I would be doing? Normally people would think create a logo, create a tagline, and that's it. Bob's your uncle. You're good to go.
Yeah. So what it is like, so your own brand, yeah.
Yeah. Say Kazi is the brand.
So then I'll say go through that four W's.
Okay.
The why, the who, the what, the how, and like what is it? And I think for me the most exciting part is getting to the last bit. It's like what's the emotions you wanna own? What are the two words that you want to own? What does Kazi stand for?
Yeah.
And like what are the words you want to own? Like, I mean, with aviation, like I know with like, is it Freeness?
Yeah, Freeness
Airways. What was different about it was halal, right? Like it was like very specific to Muslim market.
Yeah.
It's halal, but also it's like luxury because it is a private jet, and maybe there's something to do with private. So it's like finding out what are the words that you can be known for. Just like I'm trying to think of an example. Like I was speaking to Eid Party yesterday, and I was like, you know what, Riz, your like Ramadan and Eid now synonymous with your brand, not just because your brand name is Eid Party, but literally like it because they've done it so well, and not just that, they've built a whole community around it, and they're supporting other small businesses as well. There's that joy and community and home. She's kind of basically owned the words Eid Party and Ramadan, and that's what you want to do to be a successful brand.
Amazing. So now, to summarize, so you need to know why you do what you do.
Yep.
Who you're doing
serving,
it for.
yeah, precisely.
What is it that you're doing?
Yeah, and how it's going to transform their lives.
And how it's going to transform their life, not your life.
their life, yeah. But obviously, you want to transform your life. I mean, you're doing it also like
ultimately to kind of get some reward or benefit from it.
Right,
Yeah. So now I've got some, I guess, questions that I kind of ask every guest, just to kind of get a deeper understanding of their personality. So,
okay.
You mentioned you're Singaporean. In terms of dishes, do you like Singaporean or do you like, I don't know, like, British food? Singaporean. Okay, I've never tried Singaporean. Like, what is? Give me an example of what it could taste like.
Okay, I think a Singaporean is such a melting pot, right, of cultures. You've got like Chinese, Malays, Indians, and then nowadays you have like Filipino and Korean, everything. But for me, when I think Singapore, I think of satay, which is actually a Malaysian dish. I think of chicken rice, which is like a Hainanese Chinese dish, and like laksa, which is this like spicy broth like.
Amazing. So there's more flavor to it. There's more depth to the taste.
And I think what it is now, it reminds me of home. I think that's what it is. Yeah.
So in terms of where do you like living, Singapore or the UK? I know obviously your husband is here and you've kind of built your family here, but in terms of choice, if you were given the choice, you either for the rest of your life, you either live here or Singapore.
You know what? I've always dreamed of living in Bali.
Okay, so
none of those
neither of these.
I think Singapore, if I had to choose Singapore, because I can go to Bali easily from there.
Okay, so exploration. Asda or Waitrose?
Sorry?
Asda or Waitrose?
Waitrose.
Ooh.
Is it bad?
No, that's good. I guess you appreciate, the finer things in life.
I will walk into Waitrose just to look at the packaging.
Okay. So there's a purpose. Android or Apple?
Apple.
Any messages for the Android users?
For the what?
Android users.
Come to Apple.
What's your biggest fear?
Biggest fear. Biggest fear. How do I put it? It's like so many. I think it's leaving this world not having done enough for my children to get them set up for life and for the afterlife.
Wow,
that's my biggest fear.
That's amazing. Worst thing about, I guess, your current job and your business name is
Studio Noor Anisa.
Noor Anisa. Studio Noor Anisa. So if anyone is ever looking for everything that we've spoken about in terms of developing a brand, it's not just it's not just the logo.
It's not just a logo.
There's more to it. Obviously, you know where to find Maylene, Studio Noor Anisa. So what's the hardest thing about your job?
The hardest thing is being able to serve everyone, to serve the people to serve everyone who needs the help. Because I'm one person, right?
Favorite quote that inspires you all the time?
Oh, favorite quote. Kind of lost it at the moment because it changes every time.
It could be any, like,
It changes every time. Okay. The one that actually has been inspiring me recently is you don't have to see the top of the stairs to take that first step.
Nice. What annoys you or irritates you the most? It could be anything. It could be even at home. It could be, at work. Why is it that one thing that you just can't stand and it irritates you?
I think it's people copying.
Yeah, that's quite annoying.
I try not to be. I'm a bit milder now. But it used to really annoy me.
What's your biggest weakness?
My biggest weakness.
Don't worry, this is not a job interview.
I have a sweet tooth.
Okay. But I think you've kind of kept it quite under control, your sweet tooth.
Not always, though.
Not always.
You don't see the moments when I have just succumb to the temptations.
Wow, okay. That's your weakness. This is the first time I'm actually hearing from a guest that is very direct and, straightforward. Now, there are loads of people that might be wanting to develop a brand and maybe they're not ready to kind of, speak to someone like yourself, are there any books that you can recommend for them to read?
Yes.
Before they even get in touch with someone like yourself?
Definitely. A book that I love, and actually an author I love, is Donald Miller. So I would, if you're starting out building your business, or even if you're just still in business or building a brand, Build a Story Brand is a great resource. I would say get an Audible, listen to it, on the school runs, or when you're on a train or whatever. Yeah. So Build a Story Brand. But his new book, which is about building a business, and he compares it to like running an aircraft. So you probably would resonate with that.
I need to definitely look into this.
That is really good. So I would say his 2 books are amazing to start off with.
Definitely. Now, about these authors, like, is there a right or wrong? Like, when they write something, obviously they do a ton of research. How do you know, like, what they're saying is the right thing?
Sometimes you just have to try it, right?
Yeah.
To know. I mean, everyone would have their opinions. Everyone has maybe a little twist on something that's been said before.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say until you try it for yourself, you will know. Like, I think you can read it, and if it resonates with you, then great, because then you would do it. And then you just have to do it to know whether this is for you, or you might come up with your own way to do things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the whole world is changing so quickly. The consumer market is changing so quickly.
Definitely
what someone said 2 years
fast.
ago is probably not relevant today.
Yeah.
And so it's your responsibility to find out what works for you and what's good for you. And like what some other people say, like there was this whole bro marketing that I don't agree with. That was something that was quite common before, like the whole kind of like digging into the pain points and forcing someone to buy. That's like it's just against my own values.
Yeah.
But there's there can be a better way, and sometimes up to people to find that better way.
Has money made you a better person? I mean, now you are quite successful. You've done amazing jobs and you live quite comfortably. So, has it made you a better person?
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
And
can I just add something?
Sure,
because it's what you do with money.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
Matters. Okay.
Absolutely. Why do you do what you do ultimately? What is your purpose?
Okay, so again, it's all about my children. For me, the big dream is to be able to uplift the Ummah, a brand at a time, so that, one day, like our future generations, they can step out being visibly Muslim, feeling that strong sense of belonging and pride of being Muslim, and are inspired to continue to, make positive change for the community.
Why do you think it's important to kind of focus on Muslim brands? I mean, why is it close to your heart? Because every time I look at your contents or your kind of produces, it's always to do with halal branding or Muslim branding. Why is that so important to you?
You know how I said like you're like best positioned to serve an earlier version of yourself, right? I mean, for me, just being Muslim, something I'm familiar with, but also, I feel like there's so much potential. I've met so many amazing Muslim businesses, but they don't necessarily know about branding. And I would love to see our own kind of, Muslim brands being up there, playing big. And so I think it's that desire to, uplift the Ummah, because I know that's going to inspire my kids in the future.
So ultimately, what you're saying is brand development or story brand definitely returns, I guess, there's big ROI in it when you kind of do it the proper way.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's not just kind of an exercise where you build a brand and you just kind of park it up on your shelf and that's it.
No, because like brands have the power to change perceptions. Brands have the power to move someone, to do something, to believe in something, believe in themselves. And so for me, branding is what I'm familiar with, right?
Amazing.
And
I totally agree with you in terms of, how much value a story or a proper brand can bring to your bottom line.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
There's a lot of people who are just purely numbers driven. Maybe in tech it might work, but when it's an experienced brand, like perfume, for example, you have to just not be driven by completely numbers.
Definitely.
I know you're a mom of 2.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of balance it all? Like, so you got your business, you got your mum job,
Yes.
the wife job.
The wife job.
How do you balance it all out?
Oh, you know what? Constant struggle. It's not, I wouldn't say I have like a formula or anything. I don't. But I see it as like going with the flow. And I think recently what I've come to kind of realize is like not trying to multitask, but you know, when it's time to do my work, I do my work, I stay focused. When it's time to be mum, I stay focused, you know, be present. Like, no, it's hard to, but you know, try not to be on the phone and trying to talk to clients while I'm like trying to not feed, but like, you know, trying to be with my kids. So I'm like, okay, if it has come to the time where it is time to be with my kids now, let's just close the laptop, put the iPhone
Amazing.
away.
That does require a lot of self-discipline and you know.
It does, but then I don't want to, you know, when they grow up, having lost that moment. So
Absolutely, you can't rewind
you can't
back.
go back. Yeah.
Do you have a physical routine or like a health routine that you kind of follow just to kind of keep yourself, you know,
Yeah, I
fit?
So I'm signed up to Les Mills on demand.
Okay.
I found that going to the gym takes up too much of my time, so I do it at home.
Okay.
Again, needs a bit of discipline, but I've got like my body pump set at home and everything. So I just fix the time in the mornings to do that, and I do it 20 minutes, I'm done.
So I guess we're almost kind of done with our Q&As. What would you say to other busy moms, you know, or other busy wives, you know, who are out there and, you know, maybe they kind of, I don't know, maybe they're playing themselves down or you know, what is your message to those sisters?
You're amazing. You're worthy. And, you know, I think just the job of bring kids to the world and bring them up is a huge challenge or a huge job in itself. If you can do that, you can do anything. And I also say, like, you know, do not be afraid to ask for help, because no one can do everything by themselves. I mean, you can, but then, you know, you might burn out, right? So it takes a village to raise children.
And there are some people who might think being a mom and being a wife is not really kind of, is kind of counterproductive to what they're doing, you know. What's your view on that?
What do you mean by counterproductive?
So maybe it's on the way of career, or maybe
Okay, I see.
stopping them from doing certain things.
Yeah.
You know, do you think they can still do everything like I guess you're doing and still?
You know, I think the world's kind of changed now, really, isn't it? So it's you can be flexible nowadays and still be able to do something, still be able to pursue your dreams while still bring up your children. I like to see it as like, you know, this is your chance to also inspire your kids. As they watch you, they learn by example. Well, what is it that you want to bring to your children? And if you just want to stay and be a good mom, then okay, commit to that. But
be good at what you do.
But if you want to go after a dream, do it, because if you don't, you get resentful. It comes back on the children.
100%. And I guess that brings us very, very nicely to the end of our kind of session. I must once again thank you for sharing your kind of tips and tricks. And I would strongly recommend, if anyone is starting out in business, definitely, instead of wasting time, you know, definitely speak to someone like Maylene. If they have the capacity, then for sure they will assist. But once again, thank you.
My pleasure.
To our viewers, please subscribe, like, and share. Thank you.